The purple wall stretched across space like a giant curtain. For 12,000 years, every species in the galaxy had been told the same thing: do not cross the Cravian barrier. The Galactic Council made it law. They said ancient weapons waited on the other side, weapons that could destroy reality itself. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and stared at the barrier. His hands rested on the command chair, fingers tapping a slow rhythm. Behind him, 43 crew members worked at their stations. They had traveled 8 months to reach this place. Jake was a tall man with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had joined Earth's space program 15 years ago, back when humans were still new to the galaxy. The other species treated them like children playing with fire. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were wrong. Jake planned to find out. His navigator spoke first. Lieutenant Amy Pierce was young, barely 25, with red hair pulled back tight. Her fingers moved across her console, bringing up the tactical display on the main screen. "Council ship coming in fast," she said. "It's a big one." The view screen showed a massive vessel dropping out of hyperspace. It was 5 times larger than Jake's ship, covered in weapons and armor. The communication system beeped and an alien face appeared on screen. Ambassador Velthar looked like a giant insect, with compound eyes and clicking mandibles. His translator turned his sounds into flat words. "Human vessel, you are breaking galactic law," Velthar said. "Turn around now or we will destroy you." Jake leaned back in his chair. He almost smiled. "Ambassador, Earth never signed your laws. We explore. That's what humans do." "Foolish creatures," Velthar said, his mandibles clicking faster. "The barrier has killed everyone who tried to cross it. The Kryn lost 3 ships. The Deltans lost 7. Even the Vorlax Empire gave up after losing an entire fleet. You have 1 small science ship. You will die." "Maybe," Jake said. He looked at his chief engineer. Peter Hayes nodded back at him. Peter was older than Jake, with gray in his beard and steady hands. He had worked on starship engines for 20 years. "But we have something they didn't have," Jake continued. "What is that?" "Human stubbornness." "Punch it, Peter." Peter's hands moved fast across his controls. The ship lurched forward, engines roaring to life. The council vessel fired warning shots, bright beams of energy that missed by meters. But the human ship was already moving too fast, accelerating beyond their weapons' range. The crew held tight to their stations as the barrier grew closer. It filled the view screen, swirling purple and red energy reaching out like fingers trying to grab them. Dr. Lisa Grant watched her instruments carefully. She was the ship's science officer, a woman in her 30s with dark hair and sharp eyes. She had spent 5 years studying the barrier from a distance, running calculations and building theories. "The patterns match my predictions," she said, excitement in her voice. "The barrier isn't keeping ships out. It's keeping something in." The ship hit the edge of the barrier. Reality twisted. Colors changed. Gravity pulled in 3 directions at once. For 3 seconds, that felt like 3 hours. Every person on the ship existed in multiple places simultaneously. Jake saw himself standing, sitting, and floating all at the same time. His brain tried to understand and failed. Then they burst through to the other side. What they found made Jake forget to breathe. A structure floated in the void, bigger than anything he had ever seen. It was the size of Earth's solar system, made of metal and crystal that glowed with internal light. Rings within rings, spinning slowly, pulsing with power that made their sensors scream warnings. Around the structure, thousands of dead ships drifted in the darkness. Ships from species Jake had never seen before, their hulls dark and cold. "Oh my God," Amy whispered. "It's a graveyard." But Lisa was reading something different on her instruments. "No, those ships aren't destroyed. They're sleeping. And that structure in the center, it's sending out a signal. It has been for millions of years." Jake stood up from his chair. His heart pounded in his chest. "What kind of signal?" "A test," Lisa said, looking up at him with wide eyes. "The barrier was never meant to keep us out. It was meant to filter us, to find a species stubborn enough, brave enough, desperate enough to push through when everyone else would turn back." On the view screen, the giant structure began to light up. More rings activated, glowing brighter. It was responding to them, to the human ship. Far away on the Council's homeworld, alarms started blaring. Sensors that had been dead for thousands of years suddenly came alive. Technicians ran through corridors shouting in a dozen different languages. Ambassador Velthar stared at his instruments. His mandibles clicked rapidly. a sign of extreme distress in his species. He reached for the emergency communications system, the one reserved for galaxy-ending threats. "This is Velthar to all council members," he said, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. "Code Black. The humans have crossed the barrier. They have activated something. May the old gods help us all." Back on the human ship, Jake watched the structure grow brighter. He felt the weight of what they had done settling on his shoulders. They had broken the galaxy's most important law. They had crossed a line that no one was supposed to cross. But looking at that ancient structure, at the knowledge and secrets it promised, Jake couldn't bring himself to regret it. "Amy, start recording everything," he ordered. "Peter, bring us in closer, but keep the engines hot." "Lisa, I want a full analysis of that signal." "Yes, sir," they answered together. The ship moved forward slowly, approaching the structure. The dead ships around them remained silent and dark. But the structure itself seemed alive, welcoming them, waiting for them. Jake sat back down in his command chair. He opened a communication channel to Earth, knowing the message would take hours to arrive. "Earth Command, this is Captain Morrison. We have successfully crossed the Cravian barrier. What we have found here will change everything we know about the galaxy. Requesting immediate backup and science teams. And someone should probably warn the president. Things are about to get complicated." He closed the channel and looked at his crew. They looked back at him with fear and excitement mixed together on their faces. "Well," Jake said, "I guess we just changed history. Let's make sure we survive long enough to tell people about it." The council chamber looked like chaos had been given physical form. 700 representatives from across the galaxy shouted at each other in 100 different languages. Some clicked, some whistled, some broadcast their thoughts directly into the air as radio waves. High Chancellor Dravos stood at the center podium. She was made of crystal, her body reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Her species had led the council for 3,000 years. She had never seen the chamber this out of control. Silence. Her voice vibrated through the room, shaking the walls. Slowly, the noise died down. Senator Krell slammed his massive fist on his podium. He was reptilian, covered in blue scales that glowed when he was angry. Right now they were burning bright. "The humans have broken our most sacred law," he roared. "They have opened whatever horror the ancients locked away. I say we destroy them now before it's too late." "Agreed," shouted dozens of voices. But Representative Jo Chen of Earth stood calm at her podium. She was a former scientist, a woman in her 50s with gray streaks in her black hair. She had spent 5 years trying to earn the council's respect. They still treated humans like dangerous children. "Council members," she said, her voice cutting through the noise, "before you declare war on 8 billion human souls, maybe you should ask yourselves a question. Why does the barrier exist at all?" "We know why," Dravos said coldly. "The Precursor War. 20 million years ago, the ancient civilizations locked away weapons that could shatter reality." "Everyone knows this. That's the story you tell," Jo replied. "But has anyone ever proven it? Or have you just believed it for 12,000 years because it was easier than investigating?" The chamber fell silent. It was a good question, and it made many representatives uncomfortable. Velthar's image appeared on the giant display screen. He was still near the barrier, watching the human ship. "Representative Jo, your ship has accessed the structure. We're reading massive power transfers. Whatever they activated is beyond our ability to stop. We must destroy the human ship before this gets worse." Back at the ancient structure, Jake Morrison was beginning to understand what they had found. "Captain, look at this," Lisa said from her science station. She had been studying the data streaming from the alien structure for an hour. "This isn't a weapon. It's a library. A database of knowledge from every species that came before us." Peter looked up from his engineering console. "Not just knowledge, Captain. Technology. I'm seeing designs for faster-than-light engines that make ours look like steam engines. Medical technology that could cure diseases we haven't even discovered yet." Jake felt the full weight of the moment. "Lisa, how much data are we talking about?" "If I'm reading this correctly, this structure contains the knowledge of at least 50 different advanced civilizations, covering a time period of over 100 million years." She turned to face him, eyes wide. "Captain, this is the answer to every question we've ever asked. And the council has been keeping everyone away from it for 12,000 years. Amy's tactical board lit up with warnings. "Captain, we have incoming. 20 council warships just appeared. They're surrounding us." Jake's jaw tightened. He had expected this. "Open a channel." The view screen split to show both Ambassador Velthar and High Chancellor Dravos. The Chancellor's crystal body was arranged in patterns Jake had learned meant extreme anger. "Captain Morrison, you will shut down your systems and prepare to be arrested," Dravos said. "You and your crew have committed crimes against all galactic civilization." "Or what?" Jake asked calmly. "There is no or, human. You are surrounded by ships that could destroy you 100 times over. Surrender now." Jake looked at his crew. Peter shook his head slightly. Amy's hand hovered over her weapons controls, ready but waiting. Lisa just smiled that particular smile she got when she knew something important. "Chancellor, with respect, I don't think you understand what's happening," Jake said. "This structure didn't just wake up. It connected to our computers. It's sharing its knowledge freely. That's what it was designed to do. And right now my engineer is looking at shield technology that makes your weapons useless." Peter's grin widened. "Give me 10 minutes, Captain." "You're lying," Velthar snapped. "Am I?" Jake leaned forward. "Here's what I think happened. Millions of years ago, civilizations rose and fell. Each one added their knowledge to this place. But at some point, the precursors decided that knowledge was too dangerous to share. Maybe they wanted to keep their power. Maybe they were afraid. So they created the barrier and made up a story about ancient weapons." Dravos's crystal body flickered. "You have no proof, don't I? This structure isn't sending us weapons or doomsday devices. It's sharing medicine, farming techniques, and yes, advanced technology, but nothing purely destructive. This is a gift, Chancellor, a legacy for any species brave enough to reach for it." In the council chamber, Zhou Chen saw her chance. The human ship hasn't fired a single shot. They've made no threats. They simply crossed a line in space that you drew, not the ancients. If you attack them now, you won't be protecting the galaxy. You'll be proving that you've been hoarding the greatest treasure in existence. The representatives began talking among themselves. Joe could see doubt spreading through the chamber. 10 minutes are done, Captain," Peter announced. "New shields online. Want me to show them what humans can do?" Jake made his decision. "Fire one shot across their lead ship's bow. Show them we're not helpless," the human ship fired. A beam of pure energy, brighter than anything the Council had ever seen, streaked across the front of Velthar's dreadnought. The ambassador's shields collapsed just from being near it. Velthar's compound eyes went wide. "Impossible." "The word you're looking for is progress," Jake said quietly. "Now let's talk about how we share what we found. Because we're not leaving and you can't make us." The galaxy's power structure had just changed forever and everyone knew it. Ambassador Velthar stared at his readings. His mandibles clicked slowly, a sign of deep thought. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Calmer. "Captain Morrison, the Zulian hegemony wishes to negotiate. Not as enemies, but as partners. Is that the correct human term?" Jake nodded. "The structure is big enough for everyone, Ambassador. We'd welcome your researchers." One by one, Council ships began powering down their weapons. They repositioned into scientific formations instead of battle lines. It wasn't surrender. It was something humans had hoped for all along. Cooperation. "Captain," Amy reported, "Earth is calling. The President wants to speak with you." But Jake was watching the ancient structure spin slowly in the void, its rings glowing with power that had waited millions of years for someone to find it. "Tell her I'll call back," he said. "Right now I want to remember this moment. We didn't just find treasure today. We found our purpose." The small human ship that had defied the galaxy's most powerful government had done something amazing. They proved that humanity's place wasn't to conquer or dominate. It was to inspire. But far away in the darkest parts of space, something else noticed what the humans had done. Ancient systems that had been sleeping for ages began to wake up. The galaxy was about to learn that the test had never truly ended, and humanity had just started the next phase. 3 days had passed since the humans crossed the barrier. The standoff continued, but something had changed. More council ships arrived every hour, forming a massive ring around the ancient structure, but none of them fired their weapons. They had seen what human technology could do now. The human crew worked constantly, downloading and studying data from the repository. On Earth, the news sparked reactions unlike anything in human history. Governments held emergency meetings. Scientists demanded access to the findings. Regular people suddenly realized they weren't just newcomers to the galaxy anymore. In the council chamber, the debate had been going for 72 hours straight. Representatives refused to leave until they found a solution. "This is exactly what we feared," Senator Krell growled. His scales were still bright with anger. The humans have been in space for barely a century, and they're already turning everything upside down. Representative Zhou Chen stood at her podium. She looked exhausted but determined. She had barely slept since the crisis began. Senator, the order you're defending is built on hiding the truth, she said. The Council has had 12,000 years to explore what's beyond the barrier. Instead, you created a myth to scare everyone away. We created stability. High Chancellor Dravos's voice shook the room. Do you know how many wars were fought before the Council formed? How many species went extinct because they developed weapons they couldn't control? And do you know how many species have stopped growing under Council rule? Chu shot back. How many civilizations remain stuck because you ration knowledge like it's a limited resource? The chamber went quiet. Many representatives looked uncomfortable. It was a truth they knew but never spoke about. Ambassador Felnara of the Deltan Communion raised a webbed hand. She was known for her diplomatic skills. Representative Zhou, what exactly are humans proposing? Chu took a breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for. The human ship has downloaded about 3% of the repository's contents. At our current rate, it would take 40 years to get everything. We propose a joint expedition. Every Council species sends ships. We explore together. All knowledge is shared equally. Unacceptable, Velthar said immediately. Humans broke the law. They should face punishment, not rewards. Then punish us, Zhou said calmly. But think about what that accomplishes. We've already sent the shield technology specifications to Earth. Within a month, every human colony will have defenses better than anything you have. You can't take back knowledge that's already been shared. Senator Krell leaned forward, his size making him look threatening. Are you threatening the Council? No, Senator. I'm stating facts. The repository exists. Humanity accessed it. These things are done. The only question is whether we move forward together or fight a war that helps nobody. On the human ship, Captain Jake Morrison was learning things that changed everything he thought he knew about the universe. Dr. Lisa Grant barely looked up when Jake entered the science lab. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she was smiling like she had just won the lottery. Captain, you need to see this, she said, pulling up a display. It showed a network of structures like the one they found spread across the universe. There are 43 of these repositories, Lisa explained, her voice shaking with excitement. Each one contains knowledge specific to its region. And look at this connection. It leads to a structure in the Andromeda Galaxy. We could reach it in 3 months with the transportation technology we're learning about. Jake stared at the display. Lisa, are you saying there's a network of these things across multiple galaxies and the Council never found them? They never looked, Captain. The barrier wasn't just testing determination. It was testing curiosity. The Council became comfortable. They stopped asking questions. Peter Hayes walked in carrying a data pad. He looked as tired and excited as Lisa. Captain, I found something in the engineering database. Plans for a ship that could hold 10 million people and travel for generations. Self-building factories that could construct space stations from asteroids. And artificial gravity without rotation. Real gravity manipulation. How long until we can build these things? Jake asked. The shields were fast because they were similar to what we already knew. Peter explained. This other stuff could take years to fully understand. But Captain, with this knowledge, humanity could colonize the entire galaxy in a century. We'd never need the Council's permission for anything again. Jake walked to the window, looking at the Council blockade and the ancient structure beyond. That's what scares them. Not that we'll misuse the technology, that we won't need them anymore. Amy's voice came over the intercom. Captain, priority transmission from Earth, eyes only. Jake went to his private room and activated the secure channel. Admiral Helen Torres appeared. She was the head of Earth's Space Command, a woman in her 60s with iron-gray hair. Captain Morrison, I'll be direct, she said. The Council offered a compromise. I need your recommendation before we respond. What are the terms? They acknowledge humanity's right to access the repository. But they want oversight. A joint committee would review all technology before releasing it. They claim it's for everyone's safety. Jake's jaw tightened. In other words, they want veto power over what we can learn. Yes, but there's more. They're threatening economic sanctions if we don't agree. Trade embargoes, travel restrictions, exclusion from Council markets. It would devastate our colonies. Admiral, what does Earth's government want? Helen's expression grew hard. The President wants my military opinion. Can we defend ourselves if this becomes a war? Jake thought carefully. With the shield technology, yes. But Admiral, the repository has weapon specifications too. I haven't looked at them because I hope to avoid escalation. But they're there. Point defense systems that could destroy missiles from light years away. Energy weapons that make nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. Could we build them? Given time and resources, absolutely. But Admiral, if we do that, we become what the Council fears. Earth didn't come to space to conquer. We came to explore. Helen nodded slowly. That's what I told the President. But Morrison, you need to understand the pressure she's under. Some people on Earth want us to use this advantage, to make humanity the dominant power. Those people are wrong, Jake said firmly. The repository wasn't created to give anyone dominance. It was created to lift everyone up. If we hoard this knowledge, we're no better than the Council. Then what do you suggest? Jake looked out the window at the Council ships. An idea formed in his mind. I think it's time we showed the Council that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our stubbornness. It's our ability to change the rules entirely. Admiral Torres studied his face. What are you planning? Something that will either prevent a war or start one, Jake said. But I think it's worth the risk. He closed the channel and called his senior crew to the bridge. When they arrived, he laid out his plan. It was bold, maybe even crazy, but everyone agreed it was exactly what needed to be done. Amy, can you access the Council's communication networks? Jake asked. She worked at her console for a moment. The repository taught us how. I can broadcast on every frequency in Council space. Good. Because I'm about to give a speech that everyone in the galaxy needs to hear. Peter grinned. This should be interesting. Lisa just nodded. Do it, Captain. It's time to stop playing by their rules. Jake took a deep breath and prepared to change everything. Captain Jake Morrison stood alone on the bridge staring at the transmission button. What he was about to do would either save billions of lives or destroy everything. His finger hovered over the controls. Captain, are you sure? Amy Pierce asked quietly. The bridge crew had gathered. Everyone knew this moment would change history. Jake pressed the button. Attention all Council vessels and members. This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. I'm broadcasting on all frequencies so every species in the galaxy can hear what I'm about to say. In the Council chamber, High Chancellor Dravos's crystal body flickered with alarm. How is he accessing our networks? Jochin allowed herself a small smile. The repository taught them. Jake's voice continued calm and steady. For 12,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained peace through control of information. They've told you they're protecting civilization, but what if everything you know about the barrier is a lie? The transmission split the screen, showing Jake and data from the repository. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched on their screens and devices. The structure beyond the barrier isn't a weapon. It's a university, a library, a gift from civilizations that came before. And it's not alone. There are 43 of these repositories spread across multiple galaxies. They contain knowledge that could change life for every species in the Council. Senator Krell slammed his fist down. This is outrageous. Cut the transmission. We tried, a technician reported nervously. He's using quantum communication. We can't jam it without shutting down every system in Council space, Jake went on. The Council will tell you this knowledge is dangerous. That younger species can't be trusted with it. But here's what I'm proposing. Humanity will share everything we learned from the repository. Freely, openly, with every species that wants it. The Council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other. Dravos struggled to maintain order. He can't do that, Velthar protested. It would destroy everything we built. Zhou Chen's voice cut through the noise. On what authority do you stop him? Earth never signed the Barrier Treaty. Captain Morrison can share whatever he wants with whoever he wants. On the human ship, Lisa Grant worked frantically at her console. Data packets ready, Captain. I can transmit to every Council species homeworld. Send it, Jake ordered. Across the galaxy, scientists and engineers received packages of information. Medical cures for diseases that had killed millions. Farming techniques that could feed billions. Clean energy systems that would eliminate resource wars. The Council's carefully controlled technology system shattered in seconds. But Jake wasn't finished. There's something else the Council hasn't told you. The repository contains historical records. We now know why the precursors created the barrier. It wasn't to protect you from ancient weapons. It was to test you. He pulled up an ancient recording. Beings made of light and energy appeared on screens across the galaxy. The translation appeared in every known language. "We are the architects," the recording began. "If you see this, you pass the first test." The barrier was never about containing weapons. It was about containing stagnation. We placed knowledge beyond it because we understood a truth. Civilizations that stop exploring, that stop questioning, that become comfortable with limits, eventually die. The recording showed images of extinct civilizations. Each one had reached greatness before slowly fading away. We built these repositories and scattered them across the universe. We made them hard to reach because easy knowledge isn't valued. The species that finds these places must earn them through courage and determination. And when they do, they face a choice: hoard the knowledge or share it with all. The being of light seemed to look directly at viewers. Choose wisely. The universe is watching. The transmission ended. Silence covered the galaxy. High Chancellor Dravos stood motionless. Her crystal body dimmed. Around her, council representatives sat in shock. 12,000 years of carefully maintained order had been exposed as a comfortable lie. Admiral Helen Torres watched from Earth's Space Command. Military and political leaders around her struggled to process what had happened. "He just gave away our advantage," General Marcus Cole said, his voice hollow. Helen shook her head. "No, General. He gave the galaxy a choice. Now we see who they really are." The responses came faster than anyone expected. Ambassador Felnara of the Deltan Communion broadcast first. "The Deltan people welcome humanity's gift. We propose immediate joint research facilities to study the repository together." The Kryn Collective followed. "Our scientists reviewed the medical data. In the name of thousands who die from red-scale plague every year, we accept humanity's offer and extend friendship." One by one, species across the galaxy responded. Not all reactions were positive. Some feared change. Others resented humanity's unilateral action. But the tide had shifted forever. In the council chamber, Representative Joe Chen stood to address the assembly. "Members, humanity recognizes what Captain Morrison did was unprecedented. But let me ask you this. How many of your worlds are celebrating right now? How many of your people are grateful for medical cures and technological progress they needed for generations?" Senator Krell glared at her. "You destroyed the social order that maintained peace for 12,000 years. No, Senator. We revealed the order was already broken. Peace maintained through ignorance isn't peace. It's delayed conflict." Ambassador Velthar's image appeared on the display. His mandibles clicked, but his voice was calmer. "Captain Morrison, the Zulian hegemony wishes to negotiate, not as enemies, but as partners. Is that the correct term?" Jake nodded. "The repository is big enough for everyone, Ambassador. We'd welcome your researchers." Slowly, painfully, the council began to change, not surrendering but transforming into something new, something that included cooperation instead of control. Peter Hayes looked up from his station with a huge grin. "Captain, sensors show council ships powering down weapons. They're moving into research positions," Lisa added. "I'm getting data requests from 37 different species. They want to compare findings and work together." Amy reported. "Earth is calling, sir. The president wants to speak with you." But Jake was watching the ancient structure, its rings slowly turning, glowing with power. "Tell her I'll call back. Right now I want to enjoy this. We didn't just find treasure. We found purpose. The small human ship that defied the galaxy's most powerful government had done something amazing. They proved that humanity's place wasn't to conquer or dominate. It was to inspire. But far across space, in the darkest regions beyond anyone's sight, something ancient had noticed humanity's actions. Systems that had been dormant for ages began to wake. The galaxy was about to learn that the architect's test never truly ended, and humanity had just triggered the next phase. Deep in a hidden chamber on the Council's capital world, the elders met in secret. These were the oldest and most powerful beings in Council space. They had guided civilization from the shadows for thousands of years. Eldermorn, a being made of gas contained in a crystal sphere, pulsed with dark colors. "The humans have upset the balance we maintained since the Vraxian Empire fell. Their reckless sharing has already sparked conflicts. Newly empowered species are challenging old hierarchies. It's worse than that," added Elder Seath, whose form shifted between dimensions. "We detected strange readings from the repository. Deep sections that haven't been active in millions of years are coming online. The humans don't realize what they woke up." Dravos's form flickered with concern. Are you saying the architects left more than knowledge? The architects left everything, Elder Morn replied, including a final test. On the human ship, every alarm suddenly screamed to life. Amy's tactical board lit up like a Christmas tree. Captain, the repository just sent us a priority message. It's using codes we've never seen. Dr. Lisa Grant was already analyzing the data. Her face went pale as she read. Jake, this encryption is similar to the architect's original programming but more complex. It's addressed specifically to us. To humanity. Put it on screen, Jake ordered. Text appeared in English as if the repository had learned to speak their language. Inheritors of the third trial, your actions have been observed. You chose to share knowledge rather than hoard it. This is good. But sharing isn't the final test. The final test is responsibility. The text faded, replaced by a star map showing all 43 repositories, but 7 of them pulsed red. Those repositories are in unclaimed space, Lisa said, checking her data. No council species explored those sectors. Too far, too dangerous, or both. The message continued. 7 repositories remain inaccessible. They're guarded by challenges that defeated all who tried. You must reach these repositories. Prove you can overcome not just barriers of physics, but barriers of cooperation, wisdom, and sacrifice. You have 1 galactic standard year. Or what? Jake asked the screen. The map zoomed in on 1 red marker. The view screen showed a planetary system being destroyed, space and time tearing apart like paper. Failure to complete the trials will result in closure of all repositories. Knowledge will be sealed. Reality will stabilize, but progress will end. The universe will enter eternal stasis. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member stared at the view screen where the message had appeared. 7 impossible challenges. 1 year to complete them. The fate of all knowledge in the universe hanging in the balance. Peter Hayes was first to speak, his voice serious. Captain, the repository isn't just a library. It's a test that's been running for millions of years. And we just reached the final level, Jake finished. He activated ship communications. All hands, this is the captain. We have a situation. Within hours, the message spread throughout the galaxy. The council held another emergency session. For once, there was no debate about humanity's involvement. 7 repositories 1 year, Senator Krell said, his earlier hostility replaced by grim determination. The challenges guarding them destroyed ships from species far more advanced than humans. Then we don't go alone, Joe replied simply. Humanity proved we could break through the barrier. But maybe the final test isn't about one species succeeding. Maybe it's about all of us working together. Ambassador Filnara nodded slowly. A joint expedition. The best ships and mines from every willing species. The Zulians will provide military escort, Ambassador Velthar announced. Jake noticed the old hostility was gone from his voice. Our tactical experience is unmatched. The Kryn will supply medical support, their representative added. After what humanity's gift did for us, we owe them this. 1 by 1, species pledged resources, expertise, and personnel. The Council, which had spent 12,000 years maintaining careful separation between cultures, was forming the most diverse fleet in galactic history. But Elder Morn, watching from the shadows, saw something different. He sent a private message to his fellow elders. This is what we feared. The humans aren't just changing the power balance. They're changing how species interact. If they succeed, there's no going back. Perhaps that's the point, Elder Seath replied thoughtfully. Perhaps the architects knew any civilization advanced enough to find the repositories would need to evolve beyond competition. Or perhaps humanity will fail, Elder Morn said, and the universe will return to natural order. 6 weeks later, the expedition fleet assembled at the repository, 50 ships from 30 species with the human vessel at its center. Jake stood on his bridge, looking at the diverse faces of his expanded crew. Humans were now a minority on their own ship. Admiral Helen Torres had traveled from Earth to see them off. Her image appeared on the view screen. Captain Morrison, the President asked me to tell you Earth has confidence in your mission. You've already achieved the impossible. But Jake, be careful. The architects didn't make this easy for a reason. Understood, Admiral. We'll make humanity proud. You already have. But remember, you're not just representing Earth anymore. Every species in this expedition is trusting you with their people's lives. Jake glanced at his crew, human and alien working together seamlessly. Admiral, the responsibility isn't mine alone anymore. We're in this together. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, beginning a journey to the 7 inaccessible repositories. The first was in a stellar nursery, surrounded by newborn stars and radiation that would destroy normal ships. Lieutenant Amy Pierce, now commanding her own vessel in the fleet, sent tactical analysis. Captain, our new shields handle the radiation, but the gravitational patterns are unpredictable, space-time distortions that don't match anything we know. Lisa, studying data from multiple ships, saw the pattern. It's not random. The distortions form a maze. We have to navigate through it to reach the repository at the center. But Dr. Venkat, a Deltan physicist who joined the human crew, saw the real challenge. Captain Morrison, these distortions respond to our presence. They're testing our ability to adapt and cooperate. Ships traveling alone would be torn apart, but if we link our navigation systems and share sensor data in real time, we can predict the shifts. You're saying we have to trust each other completely, Jake said. More than trust, Captain. We must become one entity, many species working as one mind. It took 3 days of careful work. Ships from different cultures learned to move together with split-second precision. Zulian tactical officers taught human pilots advanced formations. Human engineers showed Kryn crews how to reroute power on the fly. Delta navigators shared their natural understanding of space. Slowly, impossibly, the fleet moved as one through the deadly maze. When they reached the first repository, smaller than the original, it opened like a flower. Knowledge flooded their systems, but it was different. Captain, this repository contains strategic information, Lisa reported with awe. Diplomatic protocols from species that formed lasting alliances. Economic systems that promoted cooperation. Cultural exchange programs that prevented wars. Tools for building better civilization, Jake said quietly. Not just advancing technology, but advancing society. 6 more repositories waited. Each had unique challenges. The second required ships to sacrifice their weapons to prove they came in peace. The third demanded crews solve ethical problems with no right answers. The fourth forced them to save a dying star system, showing their willingness to help strangers. Each trial brought the fleet's diverse species closer. Old rivalries dissolved. New friendships formed. They proved they deserved the architect's legacy. On approach to the 7th repository, in a region where reality seemed thin and fragile, they faced their greatest challenge. Captain, sensors show temporal distortions, Peter reported. We're reading echoes of ships that died here thousands of years ago. Species that tried and failed the trials. The view screen showed ghostly images of vessels from extinct civilizations, trapped in loops of their final moments. Their degraded transmissions told stories of conflict, of species that couldn't work together. They failed the test, Zhou Chen said softly, watching from the council chamber. And the universe moved on without them. But Jake saw something else. No, Representative Joe, they didn't fail. They taught us what not to do. Every civilization that reached this point contributed to the lesson. He opened fleet communications. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. Everything we learned prepared us for this moment. The architects aren't testing whether we're smart enough or strong enough. They're testing whether we learned that strength comes from unity. The fleet moved forward as one. The 7th repository opened. But what emerged wasn't more knowledge. It was a being of pure light, similar to the architect's recorded forms, but smaller, younger. Greetings, inheritors. It said in every language simultaneously. I am what remains of the architects. I am their legacy, their hope, their faith in the future. You passed the trials. Not perfectly, not without cost, but with the one quality we valued above all, the willingness to try. The being gestured and all 43 repositories activated at once. The knowledge is yours, all of it, forever. But more importantly, you proved your species are ready to join the great work. What is the great work? Jake asked. The expansion of consciousness throughout the universe, creating new repositories for civilizations yet to come. The evolution of life toward something greater than any single species could achieve. We, the architects, began this work 100 million years ago. Now we pass it to you. The being began to fade. One final gift. Look not to the past, but to the future. Your children will explore galaxies we never reached. They'll ask questions we never thought to ask. Perhaps they'll create something even we couldn't imagine. The being dissolved into points of light that spread throughout the fleet, touching every ship, every crew member, every species. In that moment, they felt it. A connection beyond language and culture, a shared purpose that would reshape civilization. 6 months later, at the original repository, a ceremony was held. The Galactic Council formally dissolved its old structures, reforming as the Confederation of United Species. Humanity was granted a central seat not by force but by earning it through lifting everyone up. Captain Jake Morrison stood with his crew, accepting honors from 100 cultures. But his attention kept returning to the viewport, where construction had begun on the first new repository. One humanity would build with all allied species. Admiral Torres, now overseeing Earth's expanded space program, stood beside him. You know, this is just the beginning. We have hundreds of years of work ahead. Jake smiled. Good. I'd hate for things to get boring. Dr. Lisa Grant joined them with a datapad. Captain, we're receiving signals from 2 galaxies we've never contacted. Young civilizations just developing faster than light travel. They're asking if they're alone. Well, Jake said, looking at the assembled fleet, at dozens of species working in harmony, I think we can give them a good answer. The small human ship that started it all remained at the heart of the new Confederation. Its name became synonymous not with the edge of exploration, but with the edge of possibility. And as the galaxy looked toward the future, everyone understood the lesson humanity taught. Progress doesn't come from reaching a destination. It comes from never stopping the journey. And the journey is always better when you don't travel alone. In the shadows of the new Confederation, the elders watched silently. Elder Morn finally spoke, his gaseous form shifting to colors of acceptance. They succeeded. Against all predictions, they succeeded. Not they, Elder Seath corrected gently. We, the humans, changed by.